Of effectively rejecting a U.S.-backed ceasefire proposal, pointing at a barrage of strikes hours after Moscow agreed to temporarily pause attacks on energy facilities. Moscow says Russia and the U.S. will decide the dates of their next talks in the coming days, while Volodymyr Zelensky says that he will be speaking to President Trump tonight. Our next story has all the details for you.
Ukraine is under fresh attack. Russian bombs, missiles and drones are targeting several Ukrainian cities. This is the moment when a missile struck Sumy. Ukraine says 7 Russian strikes targeted a medical facility in Sumy. Images show over 100 patients being evacuated from a hospital in the Ukrainian city. Explosions lit up the sky over Kyiv as raid sirens were heard across the Ukrainian capital. With no let-up in the Russian attacks, anxious Ukrainians on the streets say Russia can't be trusted.
We have already had incidents with ceasefires with Russia that were not actually ceasefires, so we have no reason to believe their words.
I believe that Putin cannot be trusted at all, because Russia has repeatedly shown that it does not adhere to any agreements.
Ukraine is also continuing its strikes on Russian territory. In the latest attack, Ukrainian drones struck a Russian oil depot in Krasnodar region. The much-anticipated phone call between US President Trump and his Russian counterpart did not secure the ceasefire that Ukraine had endorsed last week. All it yielded was a Russian promise to halt attacks on Ukrainian energy infrastructure for 30 days. Putin's demands are steep and strategic. He has called for Ukraine to cease all military mobilization and reject foreign military aid. Ukraine and Europe fear fulfilling these conditions will effectively weaken Kyiv's defensive capabilities and make it vulnerable to further aggression. Europe is on edge. From Berlin to Paris, leaders are anxious but welcome this partial truce.
The first steps are being put in place, but the objective must remain the same. A ceasefire which is measurable and verifiable, fully respected.
We are in full agreement that the goal of all efforts must be a just and lasting peace for Ukraine. The announced ceasefire for attacks on the energy infrastructure can be an important first step on the way.
As the world watches, the fragility of this limited truce underscores the complexities of the Ukraine conflict. The path to lasting peace requires more than tentative agreements. It calls for a genuine commitment from all stakeholders to end this 3-year-long brutal war. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
All right, for more on the topic, we are now being joined by Alexei Melnik, co-director of Foreign Relations and International Security Programs at the Razumkov Center in Kyiv. Thank you so much for joining us on WION. What is the mood in Kyiv as we speak, less than 24 hours after that conversation between President Trump and Vladimir Putin?
Thank you for having me. In general, there will be no immediate effect on the public mood because nothing unexpected came from the latest phone call. And the situation is still actually unchanged because what Putin says, yes, but actually means no. And that's what we saw last night.
And the Kremlin, for its part, is accusing Ukraine and Kyiv of countering U.S.-Russia efforts to end the conflict. How is Ukraine responding to that?
Nothing new. There are always accusations of Ukraine violating ceasefire, and we've been through this experience from 2014 to 2022, where Russia denied even its involvement at all in the war. And now they are talking about American-Russian agreements. It actually means that there is a bilateral agreement without a consent from Ukraine. And Ukrainian initiative about maritime and air ceasefire was actually rejected. And now what we see what actually was going to happen.
President Zelensky says that he's expected to speak with our president, President Trump. What do you expect from these conversations? And do we know what President Zelensky is going to be requesting or warning of when he talks to President Trump?
It will depend whether President Trump is going to listen to President Zelensky this time, because we remember this scandalous meeting on the 28th of February, when President Zelensky tried to explain to both the US President and his Vice President why Russia cannot be trusted and what kind of preconditions should be taken into account before any agreement with Russia to be made. And this time, if President Trump got a lesson from his conversation with Putin, he would maybe listen to President Zelensky and change his mind, but I'm not sure.
And when you talk about change his mind, is it other requests that Ukraine has, or is it about this 30-day ceasefire?
Well, Ukraine, if you talk about the ceasefire, it should be unconditional. And what we see that President Putin is trying to attach a number of conditions which are, in fact, demands for Ukraine's capitulation. And as long as President Putin is allowed to play this game, no ceasefire is going to take place. And another big issue is how to implement, how to monitor the ceasefire. And we don't see any reliable mechanism so far how to enforce the ceasefire.
Okay, well, we'll also be watching very closely. Thank you so much for all of that insight, the updates, and the analysis. Alexei Melnik, I look forward to speaking to you again soon on WION.
My pleasure.
For all the latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.